Hello and welcome to Horologique, and thank you so much for joining me today on a very special review of the Seiko Presage Cocktail Time that has been nicknamed the Frozen Margarita. And as you can see, this is all about that beautiful blue hobnail guilloché dial. This is part of the Seiko Presage Cocktail Time line, and it's a limited edition to 5,000 units, and the reference number is the SRPE49J1. This watch is still widely available and it costs in Europe 630 euros. I often tell myself that I have too many watches, and especially too many Seikos, and that is true. I cannot even count the number of watches that I have up to now. That'll make me pretty embarrassed. And Seikos, I don't know, I must have like 15 Seikos. So I promised myself that I would not buy yet another Seiko. However, when they come up with these, I could hardly resist. And I believe that many of you will feel the same way. I was very hesitant because there are two models. There's this blue one and there's a pink one. And the pink looked absolutely gorgeous as well. So I had a lot of trouble choosing between the two. However, in the end, I said to myself that these would be easier to wear with my outfits. And the second reason was that I am trying to get the Zilus Nova in pink. So that would make two pink guilloché dial watches, and that would be a bit too much. So I went for this one, and I do not regret it at all. I mean, just look at the dial, look at how it plays with the light, look at how it looks. It looks, let's say it looks fantastic, much better than the price tag would suggest. So we're going to be doing all the classic stuff today. We're going to be measuring the watch, the dimensions and everything. We're going to be talking about the movement, we're going to be talking about the positives and the negatives. No loom today because this watch has no loom, it's a pure dress watch. And in the end, I'll be giving my verdict about this watch. So let's get right into it. So let's start by something that is never really important in Seiko watches, and that is the packaging. I talk about these now because this packaging is quite remarkable. Remarkable enough that I can show it to you. So it comes in this pretty big box for Seiko standards. Inside you have your typical instructions and warranty card. So as you can see, Seiko Presage limited edition. You open it just the way you open a usual box. So this box is pretty well made for Seiko standards. It's even better than the JDM models that they used to make. This is all fluffy and you have all these indications that you're buying a limited edition Presage, and you can feel the quality here. This is still cardboard, but they try to layer it with a bit of leatherette, let's say, to make it look a little bit better, and all the layering inside is very soft and very good and very well made. You have the tag, Seiko Presage, and the reference number and the caliber. We'll talk about that in a bit. And you have a calfskin, a second strap, a calfskin strap. We will see the watch on this strap later. As you can see, I have never used it, but for this review I will put it on it to see how it goes, how it fits. Okay, let's get to the watch. So Seiko states that it has a 38.5 millimeters in diameter and an 11.8 millimeters in thickness, and they don't say anything else. So let's measure the watch by ourselves. So I measure it indeed at 38.4 in diameter. I measure it at bang on 11.9 millimeters in height, so nice and slim, and a lot of that height comes from that beautiful domed Hardlex crystal. It has a log-to-log of 45 millimeters, and that log-to-log measure is very important on how watch will wear. And last measure, it does have a 20mm log width. So a perfect set of dimensions for a dress watch. Let's compare it with the Seiko SKX. And as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller, of course, because it's a dress watch, but it doesn't look much smaller. In fact, it looks a bit bigger. And the log to log is very similar. It does look at least as big, if not bigger, than the SKX because of that big dial, of course. So again, don't worry about the apparent small size of this watch. It'll fit perfectly, trust me. And speaking of dimensions, here's how the watch wears on my 6.5 inch 16.5 centimeters wrists, and as you can see, it is perfectly fitted for my wrists. But don't let those quote-unquote small dimensions scare you off for you who've got bigger wrists. I am pretty sure that this watch will work perfectly on almost any wrist. Okay, let's talk about that beautiful dial. And I know that I have already alluded to that. That dial is guilloché, so the pattern is called guilloché. And guilloché is something that very high-end brands do, such as Breguet, for example. And it's a technique that is very hard, very time-consuming, especially when it's handmade. And I really doubt that for the price of this watch, this guilloché is handmade. So I believe it's machine-made, but in any case, it is beautifully made. I cannot even see it on macro. I cannot find any flaw on this dial. Okay, so as you can see for the dial, you have a date at 3 with a white date wheel, and you have numerals at every even number, so 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, and you have batons at pretty much every odd number, but of course for the 3, where you have a very small baton there, and the date wheel. The date wheel is framed, so let's take a look at those hands. And those hands are beautifully made. I wouldn't say they are to Grand Seiko standards, but they are really good. They're bisected in the middle, both the hour and minute hand. The light reflects on them very nicely. And you have the now typical for the Presage collection needle hand that for me is so classy with these watches. At the bottom of the dial you have the oh so important Made in Japan text, and that beautiful dial is protected by a very highly domed Hardlex crystal. I know, Hardlex at over 600 euros. I know, it's typical Seiko. We'll talk about that later in the positives and negatives, trust me. But at least aesthetically, and a rich look to this watch. Look at the beautiful domed crystal. It is very, very nice, and it's pretty high as well. Let's now talk about an underwhelming part of this watch, and that would be the case. So the case is 3/16 stainless steel, and it's polished all over, which is nice of course, but it's nothing special, especially with Seiko that is famous for making very, very intricate and nice case designs, even on entry-level watches. But this is very bland, and I wouldn't take that as a negative point just because in this watch everything is pointed to making the dial pop, and an intricate and beautiful case might have been nice, but it would have taken the shine a little bit away from that beautiful dial. And I believe that with this design, Seiko really want you to focus on that dial. The case itself, as I said, is polished all over. The lugs are straight lugs, nothing special about them, just very plain straight lugs, polished in front, polished on the sides, as is the case, and really nothing special here. And let's take a look at the crown and that crown is signed Seiko, which is wonderful, and it is pretty big and it's pretty easy to grab and to turn. Of course, the crown is non-screw down. The surface of the crown makes it that it's very easy to turn, so no problems here. And the crown is pretty big for the overall size of the watch, so absolutely no complaints here. The case back is see-through, of course. You can see on the ring surrounding that see-through case all the classic details of the watch, and you can see, of course, that this is a limited edition, as it says right there. And I've got number 1681 out of 5000. And the movement is the ubiquitous Seiko 4R35 in this case, and this is the movement that has become so classic for us. So it's a 23 jewel Hax hand winds, stated accuracy of -25 to +45 seconds a day, and it beats at 21,600 beats per hour. Reliability wise, it's luck of the draw, but in general it's pretty good, much better than those tolerance numbers would suggest in general. In fact, let's see how this one performs on the time grapher. So that Weishi 1000 is picking up a very good rate, a pretty low amplitude though, and a bit error, well, that's a bit high, but nothing to worry about. As you know, I'm not a fan of just giving one measure. It just gives you just one part of the accuracy aspect. So let's give you another measure. So at the 3-up position, we're pretty much bang on. So last position I try is dialed down, and as you can see, +3, +2, that is impressive for this movement and this watch. Let's now talk about the bracelets in plural. So yes, you do get 2 bracelets with the Seiko. You get the mesh bracelet, which is the main bracelet for this watch, which comes with this watch, and you have another one that is in the pack, that comes in the box, and it's this pretty well done calf leather bracelet. It's nothing special. As you can see, it doesn't have any contrasting stitching. I believe that it's either black or a very, very dark blue. But the main news about these straps and bracelet is that they now have spring release, and that makes it so easy to change straps. And I believe Seiko came very late to this game, forced by its competitors, but at least they're on board now, and this makes it so much easy to change straps. It's a blessing. In fact, let's go ahead and change to the leather strap for the first time. And the leather strap also comes with quick release, which is very, very good. They haven't cheaped out on this one. And as this is a dressier model, the clasp is a fold-over clasp. I believe that it wears pretty good, pretty well, and it elevates the watch a little bit more towards an even dressier side. I wouldn't say it's the most supple of all, although you feel that with a little wear it will take the shape of your wrist very easily, so pretty good there. Not a bad thing, and especially because of the fact that it's an extra on this watch. So no bad at all. As you can see, it tapers from a 20 to a 15.5. Now let's jump to the positives and negatives of this watch. Positives first, and of course a huge positive is that beautiful dial, which is a whole argument by itself. I mean, look at that beautiful thing. Can you resist it? I couldn't. Advantage number 2, and that would be that very nice mesh bracelet, and the fact that it now has quick release. Third positive, and that is not as much a positive is that movement's accuracy. Not the movement, we'll talk about it later, but the movement's accuracy. As you could see, for this movement, the accuracy was impeccable, coming in at COSC. Number 3 would be that packaging, and Seiko is pretty famous for the crappy packaging that they do for their even their mid-level pieces come with very simple cardboard small boxes, and here they have made an effort, so that is something to commend. Very good. Another thing would be the crown, and the crown is very easy to grip, pretty big for these kind of watches, very good. And of course it is signed, and that is a very good thing, because Seiko lately, even on much more expensive watches than this one, has taken into the habit of not signing crowns anymore, and that is a very bad point, but at least here they have not done that, they have signed this crown. Another positive point, it now comes with 2 straps, which is pretty much unheard of for Seiko, unless you're going into their premium models. And this calf skin, as you have seen, is pretty good, pretty high quality. Now let's talk about the negatives of this watch, and they're pretty abundant though. Even though this is a watch that is mesmerizing, it has a lot of negatives. And first would be that movement. I mean, this limited edition, 630 euros, 550 pounds, and they give you a 4R35. The 4R35 can be found in watches, in homage watches costing $50. So come on Seiko, that is really cheapening it out. And I mean Seiko of 5 years ago would have given you a 6R15, no questions. Seiko of 2020 will not put a 6R35 movement in this one, which it truly deserves to have had. Second negative would be, well, once again, a bad habit that Seiko has taken lately. This is yet another limited edition, because this is limited to 5,000 units, which is not limited at all, even for a brand like Seiko. And I believe that Seiko are really beating Omega now on who releases the most limited edition. I believe that 2 out of 3 models that Seiko releases today are limited edition, which pretty much dilutes the fact that they are limited and enrages the aficionado crowd, which was a very big support for Seiko in all these years. Third negative, even though that crystal is very beautiful, it is still only Hardlex crystal. What's up with that, Seiko? I mean, even Seiko of 2020, they're starting to put sapphire even in divers. So what's up with putting a Hardlex crystal on this one? Especially because it's very domed. So this will be very much prone to scratches. It will scratch pretty easily with that big dome. So Seiko, really, what is up with that? Why not put sapphire here? That wouldn't cost a lot of money. I wouldn't say enrages me, and it didn't stop me from buying the watch, but that is really cheapening out. So in conclusion, an impressive watch on many aspects, both positives and negatives. On the positive side, it's impressive because of that amazing dial. Come on, that dial, that guilloché dial, belongs on much more expensive timepieces. So that is on the positive note. On the impressively negative notes is the fact that Seiko have cheapened out on this one with a Hardlex crystal, with a 4R movement for a retail price that is pretty high. I mean, Seiko 5 years ago would have given you so much more for so much less. Just think about the 350 euros or dollars SARB 033, 035, which gave you so much more for the money. So Seiko is sadly going the route of positioning itself on a higher bracket of the watch world. but it is not following on what they offer you, sadly. And I believe that this one, with a 6R35 and with a domed sapphire crystal, would have made much more sense. I wouldn't say that I don't recommend it. If you're like me and fell in love with a beautiful dial, well, there's not much more I can say. I mean, I did. I went ahead and bought the watch only based on that beautiful dial. But what you get around, under and over the dial is not what you should get for the price you are paying. Of course, those are my thoughts, and I would be eager to hear what you guys think in the comments below. So thank you so much for joining me on this review. Please don't forget to comment, of course, to like, and to subscribe to the channel. I am really trying to get to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible, especially because I have organized a giveaway of the Saint Martin Smurf watch. So don't hesitate to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments of that video if you want to participate on that giveaway. Thank you again for having watched the video, and I'll be seeing you very soon on the next one. Goodbye.